Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as we celebrate Black philanthropy, Black wealth, and all things giving. I'm Erica Bradley. I'm the manager of community philanthropy, and I just want to cover a couple of things that will help us navigate successfully this afternoon. So all participants are muted. The closed captioning is on, and if you want to turn it off, you can select the CC button at the bottom of your screen. You'll see live transcript, and right on top of that, you'll see CC for closed captioning. So if you want to turn that off, feel free to do so. You'll see some other buttons as well. If you're having difficulties, feel free to contact us in the chat. And this is going to be a very interactive presentation. So feel free, and we encourage you to submit any questions that you have. And you can use your Q&A feature at the bottom. You'll put your questions there. Feel free, and rest assured that we will see them, and we will ask our speakers to answer those questions when they have the opportunity to do so. As you know, teamwork makes the dream work. So today I want to just thank our partners in this endeavor: the Prosperity Foundation, the Waterbury Black Giving Circle, and the Connecticut Community Foundation have been our partners in this program, and we could not have done it without them. So we thank them in advance for what we know will be a tremendous opportunity. So now I'd like to introduce to you a retired Connecticut Supreme Court Justice, the Honorable Fleming Norcott. He is also the chair of the foundation board. Mr. Norcott.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, I want to welcome you to this very informative and meaningful webinar regarding Black philanthropy. The celebration of Black Philanthropy Month is important for many of us who are reminded of the long legacy of Black philanthropy, and for those of us who are in need of further education on the subject. Fortunately, today, we are privileged to have as our special panelist, Ms. Asalyn Coachman of Financial Architects Incorporated, an expert in the field, and about whom you'll learn a lot more later from our second distinguished panelist, my good friend, Dr. Leon Bailey, Senior Vice President of Human Resources and Organizational Culture Department here at the Foundation. I'm sure you'll hear a lot about wealth generation and planning in the Black community and what matters are important to the Black philanthropist. We know that the African-American giver can be anyone, not just the very wealthy. To quote a learned expert, Tyrone Freeman, the African-American giving is grounded in a collective sense of responsibility and obligation towards the community and the continuing larger struggle for liberation. I'm sure that you'll enjoy the discussion and be further educated and better educated about Black philanthropy, its past, present, and future opportunities. Now, please welcome my good friend, Dr. Leon Bailey.
Judge Norcott, thank you very much for those kind words. Thank you for being chair of the board and making a tremendous difference in the work that we do. I have the distinguished honor of not only introducing our guests, but in an interaction, in a conversation with such expertise that is just amazing. And a little bit about her background. Asalyn Coachman is a financial advisor, coaching clients to wealth, one decision and $1 at a time. A Harvard University graduate and a New York State licensed attorney, she's been working with clients at Financial Architects for over a decade. Coach Asalyn specializes in building wealth through a process that educates and empowers clients to know what steps to take and why. Working together, clients build more money while reducing risk, all while sustaining their daily lifestyle. Why is the goal more money? Money drives your lifestyle. More money means more choices to live the life that you want. I just so wish you were licensed in Connecticut, but I'll talk about moving to where you work anyway. So before I turn it over to you, Asalyn, I want to start with a question that will give all of our guests, all of the attendees, a sense of who you are in your own words and in your own presentation. And let me just contextualize it this way. You received the Ohio National Financial Services Game Changer Award. It was the first one that they gave out. You were the first recipient. Tell us about the award, what it means, what it's based on, and most importantly, what is it like to be the first recipient?
Well, good morning. It's wonderful to be here. And that was a thrill and a surprise and an honor that they ended up really creating that award, because what they were trying to do was highlight the work that I had been doing just quietly in my practice to help build wealth for families who happen to be minority families. The financial services industry really has been quite heavily focused on white married couples. And that is the demographic that they were focusing on in their marketing. And unfortunately, the majority of advisors were among that same demographic. So me coming in, number one, as a woman, me coming in as a Black woman, and then me coming in and working with other Black professionals. I have a lot of single professional women that I work with. I have actually clients of all different ethnicities and races and backgrounds. And I do work with white couples also and white women also. But they noticed how diverse my client base was. And they saw that I was really making a concerted effort to actively go out and introduce myself to prospects who were minorities so that they too could be exposed to the skills and the talents that others have been able to use to grow their wealth. Because for us, it's a lack of information. It's not a lack of desire or a lack of capacity. It's a lack of information. So I was thrilled when they did that. And the president, Barbara Turner, who happens to be a Black woman, the president of Ohio National, she was able to be part of that presentation to me. So it was really special.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Now, I don't want you to give away your secret sauce about some of the things that you use and the techniques, but there's a common saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And well, there is, and you have been quoted as saying, and let me make sure I get this right, good financial intentions often lead to undeserved or opposing results. Can you expand on that?
Exactly. I work with people who are very, very bright. And I've learned that very intelligent people are really, really good at learning the rules and following them, but they don't realize they're the wrong rules. So they're really good at doing things well that they shouldn't be doing. And the reason is, again, lack of information. I use an example. If you have a 401k, it's a great tool. It's just a savings pot of money, and it's not going to do for you all of the things that you expect it to do, especially if you don't understand how it works. And when you put all of your money and all of your energy into that one bucket, it's like aspirin. Aspirin is good in small quantities. You don't want to take a bottle of it. And so they're well-intentioned, they're trying to do the right things, they're making decisions based off of what they know, but they don't realize that there are things that they don't know.
Excellent, excellent. So Asalyn, there is this narrative that actually you represent the antithesis of, in terms of knowledge, in terms of insights and things like that. Could you just give us a little insight into, first of all, the concept of Black wealth, how it's developed, Black philanthropy, given Black Philanthropy Month. And I think you have, a presentation to capture that. So please.
I do. The fun for me is when I talk to clients, one of the things that I want them to understand is if we decide to engage in a relationship, well, I will be their guide and their financial advisor. This is a lifelong relationship that I want to initiate. This is not me just get you to retirement and then good luck. this is understanding there are 4 phases. The phase when you're accumulating money, the phase then when you're spending that money, then the phase if you're a married couple where one passes, so we have to help the surviving spouse. And then when that spouse passes, we have to help the children. That's the 4th and final phase of any person's financial life. It's your legacy phase. And so I have conversations with clients at day 1 and explain to them that this is the type of planning that we're talking about. This is not just you. And I look at young couples sitting in front of me and I'm like, I know this is hard to wrap your brains around, but because of the conversation we're having, and because you and I choose to engage in a relationship, you are profoundly impacting your unborn grandchildren's financial outlook. And that is what is so powerful. And I work with people who that's what they want. They're working so that they can have a better life and that they can also pass something on. And that's the mentality that not everybody has. And so that's why I'm pretty discerning in who I'm working with. And so then when I was asked by this wonderful organization to talk more about Black philanthropy, it did tie in so much in what I do with clients on a daily basis and talking about that legacy planning. But this is going to be a even more, I think, even more comprehensive. So I do have something that I can share if I'm able to share my screen. Let's see. And Leon, is everybody able to see my first slide?
I believe so.
Okay, well, wonderful. I was thrilled to find out that there was a Black Philanthropy Month. And I'm almost ashamed to admit, I did not know that there was a Black Philanthropy Month. So if any of you out there are sitting there thinking, I didn't know this was Black Philanthropy Month, you are not alone. So this is one thing that you need to take away and need to share with everybody, that there is a month that is highlighting Black philanthropy. It was created in 2011, so this is 10 years old, started by Dr. Jackie Bouvier Copeland and observed the entire month of August. August is also my birth month, so being a Leo, August 10th, I'd like to celebrate all month long. So this is something that I can celebrate alongside my birthday. So, but it's an initiative that really is helping to spread the word and the knowledge and information about Black philanthropy, the ingenuity and the generosity. Because what I don't want people to think is this is something new. It is not. Black philanthropy has a rich, rich history, and it dates back to West Africa, pre-colonial West Africa, where there was a practice and a tradition in African communities of giving and sharing. So this dates back. This is in our bones. This is in our DNA, guys. This is not something that's new. And these cultures and these practices then were brought over to this country during the slave trade and were continued to be practiced. And during the period of segregation and Jim Crow laws, you know, Black Americans gave through their churches, through their social organizations, through their fraternal, through educational facilities and institutions. So this has been going on for a long, long time. It has, because of that too, we have been able to have the formation of Black organizations like schools and African-American banks and businesses. So this is all tied in with the way we as Black Americans have been able to grow to date financially and grow wealth. But do not for 1 minute think that this Black Philanthropy Month is something brand new. It's something that I want everybody to share with others so they're aware of it and to take pride in what has happened. Now, when we think about Black philanthropists, there are some names that we, of course, come to mind. Madam C.J. Walker, any woman who's put a hot comb in her hair years ago or put some oil or grease in her hair, right, can thank Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first Black millionaire, and she lived from 1867 to 1919. Again, like I said, this is not new, but she was able to be a self-made millionaire. I did a little research. At the time in the country, there were only 5,000 millionaires, and she was the first Black. Now we've got 22 million millionaires in this country. So she was definitely a leader. But then names you might not have heard of. Robert Church. He was a millionaire business leader in Tennessee and a philanthropist. He was part of Beale Street and had many, many businesses. Mary Ellen Pleasant worked on the Underground Railroad as it moved toward California. And so she is known as a woman who helped inspire through her philanthropic work and was well known. She supported the abolitionists. And so she was another woman who used her knowledge, her skills, and her money to move people forward. So she's kind of known as the mother of human rights in California. And O.W. Gurley, many of us are familiar now with the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. He had a lot of businesses. He was one of the wealthiest men in Tulsa. This was around 1921. So unfortunately, the way the American education system has been set up, we haven't been given a full and comprehensive understanding of what we as Black Americans have brought to this country. And so it's important that we know that there have been wealthy Black Americans, and this was a long time ago. Now we're familiar with, Black Americans actually donate the highest percentage of their wealth. And this is something that sometimes surprises people, because when we think of philanthropy, we often think of probably majority organizations, white people who are able to make these large sums of money. But when we talk about individual giving, Black Americans have been doing this for years and years and continue to support. And they're supporting the organizations that I talked about before, churches and fraternal organizations and the sort. And actually in a study, as you see, Kellogg Foundation, 2/3 of Black families are making these contributions. That's a B, $11 billion a year. So we are a powerful force in this economy. And again, we need to own that, we need to understand that, we need to embrace it, and we need to use it wisely. We have some challenges that other groups do not have. As Black Americans, we are trying to build wealth. And unfortunately, when we talk and we look at the policies, the tax policies, the laws, it is no surprise that there is some very distinct disadvantages built into the tax code and to laws that prevent us or inhibit us from building wealth the way majorities might. We are having to take on more student loan debt, which means that then there's less money for us to be able to give because we're trying to educate ourselves. Our home values are typically lower. We are sometimes forced to purchase homes in areas where we don't want to, or we're in an area, that area then becomes depressed. It's hard to get into new areas without some hurdles we have to overcome. The tax code is an interesting history in racism in America. And one example I'll give you is the tax code was written in a way such that if you had two individuals who were each making $50,000 a year, which was typically a Black household because you had a wife that was working alongside of her husband. Do you know the tax code was written so that family income of $100,000, if it came from two separate people, they paid a higher percentage of taxes than the typical white counterpart where just one, and at the time it was typically the man was earning $100,000 and the wife earned $0. Both families had the same $100,000 income, but the code was written in such a way that it disproportionately disadvantaged Black households when you had two wage earners. And then if that's not bad enough, when more white women, majority women started working, and then it turned out that they were getting disadvantaged because they had two incomes, the tax code changed again. So there's stuff like this going on that makes it difficult. We know there's a pay gap. We know that Black families also are often responsible to help other family members. That's one of the challenges my clients face. I'm typically working with the clients who are the successful members of the family. And so other members of the family lean on them for support. So we've got challenges to building our own wealth, which then gives us a reason then to want to help, but then makes it difficult too. So when we're working together, when I'm working with clients, we've got two main phases. That wealth building phase I mentioned, where we're working, it's you actually going out and earning money. It's an active earning period. And then there's the wealth distribution phase. And we kind of call that coming down the mountain. That's when we've amassed money in different buckets, I call them, and the money now is getting spent. We're using our money, and our money is doing the work, and we get to sit back, the wealth distribution phase. So these are the two phases. Now, what we typically think of is during the wealth distribution phase, that's when we're thinking about philanthropic giving to family or to charitable organizations. And when I first came into the business, that's kind of how I was thinking it was going to go. And a lot of my colleagues are working with retirees, and there's a big focus on charitable giving at that point in their lives. But that was the interesting thing I found in working with Black families. Black families are talking about these contributions happening during the wealth building phase also. They're not waiting until that retirement phase. Sometimes it's because I mentioned before, a family member, they need the help, but it seems that a lot of my Black clients have a very strong relationship with some organization, some person, something that has helped build them and boost them up. And they feel very, very much drawn to give back. And that is just beautiful. I love to see that, and I help them understand that we can balance, and yes, we can give and we can still wealth build at the same time. And it's a personal choice. And it's a balance, because if they didn't give during their wealth building phase, they'd have more for themselves. But I found that Black families find it very important. It's rare that I find a Black couple who's not giving actively to a church or to a fraternity or a sorority. So that's something that, those are kind of the two big ones that I'll see. I'll also see a lot of donations, for instance, to a Boys and Girls Center or something like that. Some organization that's kind of helped them and they feel a responsibility to give back. And that I love. I do love helping people with that and showing them that they can do both. Black philanthropy is changing though, because we are now in a wonderful period where Black Americans are able to amass more wealth than they've ever been able to before. Even if we compare to the wealth and we do calculations comparing to the wealth of like the Madam C.J. Walker, we're able to produce so much more wealth within the Black community. And that's a wonderful thing. And for me, I always feel that that also comes with a responsibility. So we have 7 Black billionaires right now. And these are the names. And many of them you recognize. And many of them, actually all of them, are self-made. They have done something to create their own wealth. And right now, 80% of millionaires are self-made. 20% have inherited money. So this is something that should be, kind of a beacon of hope that anybody can do this. You can build wealth by doing something that you love and doing it well. It doesn't all have to come through inheritance. Now, the nice thing is we have about, like I said, 22 million millionaires. We are still in the minority. That's only about 8% of the millionaires in this country that are Black. 76% are white. But we are still making strides and we're still moving forward. Why do I mention the billionaires? Because we have to have money in order to be able to donate money. So I say we have to be a capitalist before we can be a philanthropist. I had an interesting conversation with my son, who is 24 years old, And he's very socially aware, very politically active. And he had it in his mind that to really be able to contribute and to relate to people, he had to be part of the struggle, meaning he needed to kind of live a more impoverished lifestyle. And because unfortunately so many of us do in the Black community, he thought that would help him then relate better. And I explained to him that the way to have the biggest impact is still going to be with money. Cash is still going to be what is needed to move things forward. The civil rights movement needed cash to move forward. It needed the spirit of everybody, but they needed resources. And so we still need to build ourselves up. We still need to protect ourselves and our families and build wealth. And when we're able to get into a position, then when we are taking care of ourselves, now we can give more, which can have bigger and longer ripple effects in a community when you can make more sizable contributions. So I don't want you to think that, you know, I need to give to a point where I'm impoverished or I'm suffering. It's like, no, we build ourselves up and then we have a stronger base from which to work. So we're capitalists, then we can be philanthropists with a longer reach toward what we can do with our dollars. The good news is we've got some wonderful people on that billionaire list, right, who are doing these things. Oprah Winfrey, I know we all know her. She's got a charitable foundation. According to her foundation, she has given over $400 million. That's sizable, that can impact people. Thousands and thousands of people have been impacted by those dollars. So I respect her for what she is doing. She is a steward not only of her own wealth, but she is giving to others. So she sets an example. Another good one is Robert Smith. Now, I don't know if any of you missed this, but in 2019, he received an honorary doctorate from Morehouse College. And he said, I am going to share with my classmates, and paid off the student loan debt of every graduate that year. I can't even imagine being in that audience. $34 million from him to help give a leg up. The neat thing is, I do know somebody who personally benefited from that because my neighbor and dear friend had a son at Morehouse and had taken out loans, and he had those loans eliminated. He's a young man, he's a professional now, he's working in it's a business training program. I think he's with Enterprise, and he doesn't have that burden of student loan debt. So this is one way that Robert Smith and his family chose to give back and to make an impact. So every single one of those classmates now has a leg up on building wealth for themselves. And hopefully, as he was saying, he wants them to pay it forward too. So I'm hoping that we're going to get that expansion of giving. And this is another very personal one. The man on the left is a man named Andre Davis. And Andre and I are colleagues here in the Detroit area. Pharrell Williams has a foundation, and he was giving out a grant to companies, startup companies, in the area of tech design, healthcare, consumer products, and he wanted to help Black and Latinx entrepreneurs. And Andre and his partner won $1 million grant for their tech business. So that was because of Pharrell Williams, the artist and singer. So we're seeing Black philanthropy in ways that are really kind of splashy and big numbers. And it's encouraging and it's exciting, and I hope that it continues to happen. And as you hear these things, that you'll look for opportunities where either you can be a beneficiary, like my friend Andre here, and can grow his business, or ways that you can even contribute yourself. What can you do? Understand wealth building is a marathon, not a sprint. This is something that happens over time. Okay, it is very rare that you will get a huge inheritance or win the lottery. So we're not planning for that. We're going to make the right decisions. I explain to people, we're going to understand the economic rules and principles. There are things that nobody has taught you. I have to teach you how banks think. I I have to teach you how interest works. I have to teach you how 401ks work. I have to teach you how student loans work. So you understand these tools, because that's all they are. They're tools to use to build wealth. We make the right decision using the right tools. Months turn into years, years turn into decades. Most of the millionaires in this country are in their 60s. They did not become a millionaire until average age of 62. This is a marathon, not a sprint. When building wealth, as I said, I work with very smart professionals, but it's kind of like this. Think of it this way. Whatever your job is, you have been educated and trained and you practice in that. I bet you I could Google your profession and figure out, oh, that's what they do. I can do that, right? If you're a judge, oh, what? You listen to both sides, you make a good guess. Okay, yeah, I can do that. If you're a doctor, no, there's a lot more involved in making the right decisions. There's a lot of information that you don't know. So just as I tell, especially doctors love this, don't you love it when patients come in and they say, oh yeah, I Googled my symptoms and I think I have this. There's a lot of information that they use to come up with their professional advice and counsel. And so there's no reason you should expect, if you are not trained in tax or economics or finance, that you should be able to figure out all these complex rules and figure out how to put them together for yourself. So that's why you need professional help in wealth building. What you don't know can cost you millions of dollars over the course of your lifetime. And I'm able to prove that to people. There's money that I call slipping through the cracks. So if you have a bucket of wealth, we don't want money slipping through the cracks. So get professional help. There's a lot of information out there that's confusing and it's hard to know what applies to you and what doesn't. Because we want you to build your wealth so you get to your maximum financial capacity. When you do give, there's a term that we use called peanut butter giving. What's peanut butter giving? Peanut butter giving is when you give a little bit of money to a lot of different organizations. And that's fine. What you might want to do, if you're really passionate about an organization or some cause, is to focus those dollars and give a larger contribution to maybe just one or two organizations. You can then start to build a rapport with that organization and really, really be able to make a substantial impact for that organization. So that's something that I'll often have a conversation with clients about because they're doing a lot to a little instead of doing a big contribution just to one or two. If you don't have the money that you think you would like to have to contribute, organizations will still take your time. They will still take your expertise and your talents. They will still take your goods if you can donate in kind. So there are many different ways that you're able to help and be philanthropic. And another thing to think about, and this is toward the later part of your financial life, is including a charitable organization in your estate planning. Now, in order to do this, you do want to work with an estate professional. You want to find an attorney who specializes in estate planning. And you're also going to want to include a tax professional, a CPA, in talking about it. There's so many different ways that you can leave money to an organization when you pass that can benefit your estate and your heirs financially, reducing tax burdens and others. But it's a way that you can also be philanthropic and continue a legacy for your family. So that's something else that people can think to do, is include an organization in your estate plan. And remember, if you do something like that, you still can make changes to it also. So if you get into high level complex trusts, right, when they're talking about irrevocable trusts, that's when you get the advice on whether or not to do that. Then that contribution, once you make it, you cannot change it. But for most people, we're talking about revocable documents where you can make a donation to a charity. And then if you change your mind before you pass, you can always do that. The most important thing is to share what we've talked about today. that August every year is Black Philanthropy Month, because we want to have stories that we can be proud of. We want to know that our contribution to this country has been more than what we are taught in school, that we have had brilliant and dedicated and generous Black Americans come before us who have done things under the most insurmountable circumstances. They have risen and they've been able to achieve. We need to take pride in that. And I want you then to think, how can you continue that tradition in whatever capacity you have to give and to share it to others, not just during Black Philanthropy Month in the month of August, my favorite month, but throughout the entire year.
Wow. Okay, Asalyn, I have a ton of questions, and I want to leave time for folks in our audience to actually present some questions too, or maybe not, since I have the mic. Maybe not.
You have the power then.
Exactly. No. One of the things, well, first of all, I want to just acknowledge August as Black Philanthropy Month. We have actually hosted an event just like this with Jackie Coachman. And she was also by one of our co-sponsors, the Prosperity Foundation hosted her recently as well. So and as a footnote, I would love to see the two of you on a panel together. That would be just like magic. That would be magic. Anyway,
I would love that. I'd be honored to meet her. Yes.
Absolutely. It would be like one of those dream connections that, one only thinks about. You talked a lot about legacy. One of the questions that just pops up for me constantly is, how do you change the narrative? Because legacy, to the point that you brought up in your presentation, in the Black community, we do what we do because we've always done it. It's generational. It's, someone comes from down south and we take care of them, and it's like that. The legacy conversation is a very different conversation, and putting that into some sort of context, what would you recommend? What are your thoughts on that? Because that long-term generational view, we do it now, but not necessarily with a long view. How do we get to that long view?
I think for one, it's adjusting your mindset. We are very much a culture of people who want immediate gratification. We want to see results right away. You want to do something and see, you start a diet and how come I haven't lost 10 pounds in a week? It's like these things take time. And so being able to appreciate what has happened before and then start to visualize for yourself. It's like, what do I want to pass on? Because words and actions are powerful. And if a person understands what has happened before is beyond us coming over as slaves and not much more than that, but that we have accomplished so much, then it helps us visualize for ourselves what we can do. When we see an Oprah Winfrey, right? Or another person who is emulating, who is doing what we would like to do, we see it and we can emulate it. So much of it is seeing somebody step before us so that we can adjust our thinking to realize that we need to expand our thinking. I call it 10x thinking, and not limit us. So we need to have a bigger picture for ourselves, and we need to talk about that, surround ourselves with people who support that, not naysayers. You can't do that. Are you crazy? You want to do what? Get those people out of your life. Positive reinforcement, and share that with our children. Look at our children and say, you can be and do whatever you want. I will help you. If I can't help you, somebody else will help you. And I'm going to learn myself how to take care of money. I'm going to be a good steward of my own money, and I'm not going to let you make money mistakes that I've made. I'm going to help you and empower you so you will learn how to manage your own money and your own finances and have a healthy relationship with money. It's learning and then walking the walk, talking the talk, and trying to then share that with the next generation. That's how we build legacy. That's how we get people to think about it differently.
Okay, we are getting questions, a lot of questions in the chat.
Good.
I'm going to go to the chat, and this question is actually, if Karen, if you could turn on your mic and ask it yourself, Karen Du Bois Walton. Karen, are you there? Or shall I ask it for you?
I see her coming on the screen.
There she is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Hello.
Hello.
Wonderful conversation. And I was really intrigued by your talking, and I appreciate your highlighting the issues in the US tax code that really codified structural racism. I wasn't clear, are those things still on the books? And are there continued things on the books that discriminate against or really codify racism in the tax code and things we should be working to get reformed in this country?
That's a great question. And there are still some, the laws I talked about have changed some, right? Because then as more white women got involved, then they changed that. There's still some issues though, obviously, with the tax code. One of the big ones though, is this country still makes a point of taxing married people at a lower rate than single people. So just as I talked about before, if you have a single person making $100,000 versus a couple making $100,000, the single person is going to pay a higher percentage because that's the way the tax code is still geared. So there are still definite inequities in the tax code. The single kind of penalty I talk about a lot with clients, because as I mentioned, I have a lot of single professional women who I work with, and that's just one of many economic impediments that they have. But yes, there are definitely still some actually several tax inequalities, but we can talk more later about some more specifics. But the single person one is one that comes to mind.
Great, thank you. Valandria Turner has a question. Please, Valandria.
Yes, can you hear me now? Great.
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much for this. And I just want to acknowledge all the amazing knowledge in Detroit. But anyway, guess where I'm from. Now, my question is, and this is very timely for me, how do you find a qualified Black financial advisor, and what should you look for in making that selection?
That is a very good question. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of us. So one of the things we want to do is see if anybody can recommend somebody. So that's the way I meet 99% of my clients, is because somebody has made an introduction. And so if you can find somebody who's working with a Black professional, that's your best entree, your best introduction, because hopefully that person is happy with them. If you are able to, and you are able to talk with that person, even if that person doesn't work out, you might not be a good fit, they might know other Black professionals that they could then introduce you to, because the community is not very, very large, unfortunately. If you go to some of the larger places where they manage assets only, you can even look on websites and kind of look through photos, but that's still not the best way to do it. I mean, what it comes down to is the best way is if you can find somebody, and that just means asking a lot of people. Attorneys, if you know any Black attorneys or Black CPAs, I would also check with them and see if they know any Black financial professionals who they're working with. That's another good one, because they'll typically know somebody, and hopefully they'll be able to, say that they're a good professional to work with. But it is a challenge, but I would just keep asking, because there are excellent advisors out there. When you talk to them though, then you want to find out what's the scope of their work, because some are going to just be asset managers. What do I mean by that? They're going to only be concentrating on having you open an investment account an IRA, a Roth IRA, they want to get you to put money in that bucket because they earn money by having a fee placed on that bucket. And that's how they earn their money. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you have to be clear on what you want and what you're getting. Because if you want somebody to help you build wealth, it's going to take more than just putting money into that bucket. It's going to be having somebody help you with everything from how have you managed your debt? How are you paying for a home? What's going on with student loans? How's your insurance? Is your home insured? Is your auto insured? Do you have an umbrella policy? Do you have disability insurance? Do you have life insurance? Have you done an estate plan? So there are over 31 different areas in your financial world. Most people aren't aware of that, but there are a lot of different areas that we have to coordinate together. So my point is, when you're talking to somebody, ask them questions about what they will be able to help and advise you on. And if they're focused just on your assets, like investments, 401k, Roth, then you know that they can help you with that, but you're still going to need to get guidance on those other areas. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it is helpful. And just one point, Asalyn, it's also complicated because what you're talking about is ramping up to a level of understanding where one can then step into that wealth building arena. But it's, you know, from where a person may be up to that threshold can be a challenge. And that takes us to the next question in the Q&A. And Karima, please, if you come on and ask your question.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. This is so helpful and educational, and it's a wonderful way to give that you're giving right now to our community. So thank you so much for doing this. Yeah. A couple of questions for people like myself who just want to get started in learning about this. So I have a couple of questions. One is about just how do you find a Black-owned bank? Like, how can you tell which banks are Black-owned, if they're part of a franchise or something, and where they are in Connecticut? I've been wanting to open up a new account and searching for a Black-owned bank. I'm not sure where to find them or how to find them. Also, are there classes in Connecticut or virtually for people like myself who want to just start on this learning path about philanthropy and building wealth? And I think someone else asked the other question about how to find a qualified Black professional in this area. So that has been answered, but finding a Black-owned bank in Connecticut and also finding classes or programs or workshops that can help just educate the people about how to get started with this.
Great questions. I'm thinking about the Black-owned bank question right now, because the short answer is I'm not sure the best way to find one, unfortunately. My clients have told me about ones here in my area. But the short answer, and I'm going to actually look into that more, I don't know if there's like a directory or a repository where you can get the names of Black-owned banks. The sad thing is there are not very many anymore because of things that have happened in this country. They were built up, but then they were destroyed. So I see okay, I thought that was a Black bank. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for how to find a Black-owned bank, but I can do some research into that. And it's a good question because I have a lot of clients who specifically ask me for, you know, do you have a Black attorney that we can work with? Do you have a Black CPA that we can work with? And so I've made a point to build a team of professionals that includes, yes, Black attorneys, Black CPAs, because that's more and more important and people are asking for that. And that's probably going to be a question I'm going to get here is about a Black-owned bank. So I'm sorry I don't have a good answer, but I'm going to look into that for you and for my own clients so I can guide them in that direction. In terms of classes, that's kind of the tricky, and that's one of the things I love about the work that I do is that when people encounter me, they realize that they've never talked to anybody like me, because I'm able to synthesize so many different areas. If you go perhaps to community colleges, they might have classes that you can take, but it's going to be on kind of individual topics. Estate planning would be one topic. Nobody wants to sit through a tax conversation, but that would be another. They might have classes on general financial planning. Some schools will allow you to audit a class where you just sit in, you don't actually have to pay for it, and you're not technically enrolled, but some schools might have that option there. That it's one of the things that we should be teaching kids in school and in high school. They should have a financial education. It was just crazy that, especially years ago, they don't do it so much anymore because it's predatory practices, but college students were handed like credit card applications, and we're getting credit cards and say, you know, and I explained to my kids early on, just because I give you an allowance, that does not count as income for yourself. If you don't have income, you can't use a credit card, right? So, but if you don't know this, you can get yourself into trouble. So it's really sad that, you know, we now are looking to get this information. I'm able to help clients because I put together information on all these different areas and help them understand how to build it together and make all these different disparate financial decisions come together and make sense. But it is tricky because you need to understand insurance, you need to understand estate planning, you need to understand taxes, you need to understand mortgages and debts. Those are kind of like some of the big key areas. So check with some of the schools. They might be able to help you if they have kind of a general class.
Yeah, and Asalyn, so much of what you're pointing to are the systemic elements that are hidden from view, that are booby traps, or, you know, similar to your slide on student debt and those other elements that are impediments to getting to the point that, you know, we're talking about. Another question in the Q&A from Yolanda. Is Yolanda ready?
Hi, Asalyn. Hi, Leanne.
Hello.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation, Asalyn. And I actually got a flashback of when I was an undergrad and got one of those credit cards. So my question, and you started to answer it actually, is about how early in a person's life they should be thinking about building their wealth and understanding finances. So I'm talking about getting banked, balancing checkbooks, savings. So there's kind of the school part of it, but like, are there other ways to get young people thinking about this and really avoiding those opportunities, those predatory opportunities that they may get caught up in?
I think for many families, part of the generational difficulty has been, it's been taboo to talk about money. It's not polite to talk about money. And we really have to get over that. And we need to talk to our kids and help them understand the value of money. And when my kids were young, you know, I realized that they thought money came from the ATM machine. It's like, no, this is what happens, right? Daddy and I work, we put money into the bank and then we get our money out. But it's talking with kids from when they're young and helping them understand money as a medium of exchange, because that's what it is. And understanding when you have money, you're going to need to spend money for certain things, but you have to be careful about how much you spend. You always have to save something. So a lot of it is going to be educating the kids through our own practices. We have to look at ourselves and acknowledge, yeah, these are some habits I don't want to pass on. If you're looking at a credit card that's maxed out, you're afraid to hand it over because you don't know if it's going to be declined or not. That's something that we have to own. You have to decide, okay, I'm going to have a better relationship with money and I'm going to model a better relationship then for my children or for younger generations. When you're working with your banking, you know, as age appropriate, let your kids be involved. Let them understand this is a checkbook. This is how you write a check. This is why it's important to know how much is going in and how much is going out. This is a check register. So they're going to make mistakes, but it's better to make a mistake with, you know, a $10 or $20 mistake versus a $2,000 or $3,000 or $20,000 mistake later on. So it doesn't matter the zeros, it matters the understanding and the principles that you're teaching now. So it's going to happen at home because our schools are just not teaching kids how to be responsible stewards of money. And I'll just say this, and the reason is because we live in a capitalist country where everybody's trying to get your money. So stores, credit cards, banks, financial institutions, one of their key rules is get your money and hold on to it as long as possible. So they want you to overdraw that account. The bank wants to charge you $30 for a bounced check. The credit card company wants you to spend it all up and then pay 24.99% interest. So they're not incentivized to help you be good stewards. That's what you're working against. That is why it's so difficult. So trying to acknowledge any mistakes you're making and make sure you're not passing them on, and be honest with your kids that, you know, this was a mistake and this is why, and this is what has happened as a result, and this is what we're going to do moving forward. But try to start including them in some of those conversations.
Yeah, and just to make a comment to one of your earlier observations about peanut butter giving, I thought that was so perfect. In the foundation world, our foundation might have been accused of peanut butter grant making, but don't quote me, it was just speculation. But one of the things we did this year in response to George Floyd and everything else was actually incorporate a program called Stepping Forward, where we focus dollars on actually addressing these issues head on. So there is an awareness operating here that actually, you know, we can be proud of. And one final question, aside from getting your license to do this in Connecticut, for no personal motivation here, it's just a question.
Work anywhere in the country.
Right. I'll call you later. But what would you recommend in terms of, you know, like a takeaway for folks to do one thing to start down that path for expanding their wealth? You know, because there have been a lot of, you know, great bits of information that you've shared, Asalyn, and, you know, just if there's one takeaway that you would like to leave folks with, what would that be?
That's a great question. The one takeaway is the best way to protect yourself financially and to build wealth so that you have some options and some flexibility and you don't feel like you're so oppressed and unable to do things when you want to do them, is to build a savings account. I didn't say an investment account, I said a savings account. Americans have confused savings and investing. A lot of people are surprised because they think I'm a financial professional and I'm going to start talking about mutual funds and ETFs and laddering this and this. No, I want you to have money sitting in your savings account. It is scary how little money is in a savings account for most people. And what does that mean? It means you are on the brink of financial disaster. If you have unemployment, underemployment, any unexpected cash requirements where you have to buy something and you don't have it, you're going to start yourself on a treadmill where you have to charge it or you have to borrow it, and then you're going to have to try to pay that back with interest, and you dig yourself into a bigger hole. Mm-hmm. Economic principle says take your gross annual income and divide that by 2. You might have heard 6 months salary. You make $100,000 a year. Ladies and gentlemen, you should have $50,000 sitting in a savings account. I don't care if it gets 0.1% interest. That's not the point. Do that first. When you have done that, now you have protected yourself against unforeseen financial consequences moving ahead. You'll have money. And then you'll be able to start putting money at risk and doing what people consider investing. Don't invest first, because when that investment does not work out, you're going to be stuck. So promise yourself every pay, no matter what, you're going to put money into savings and don't touch it. Don't pull it out. I don't care how cute those boots are. You are not buying them. Okay. Once you put money in there, it's in money jail. Do not take it out unless it's truly an emergency. And you know what a real emergency is. And going to dinner with your girlfriend is not a real emergency. A real emergency will be that, oh my gosh, I need a new car. Oh my gosh, my roof is leaking. Oh my gosh, my employer is telling me I can only work 4 days a week and I'm going to only get paid 80% of my employment. Those are real ones. So that's the thing, Leon. Get a savings account and build that savings.
Asalyn, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I thought Susie Orman was the bomb, but you know what? She pales in comparison to you. We have to do this again, and
We do.
not necessarily in the name of Black, Philanthropy Month, which is an occasion, and not because August is your birthday month and we honor that, but because of the value that it brings, the questions that have come up in the chat that we have not, unfortunately, had enough time to get to, but it shows that there's a need that is screaming for attention. So thank you for your generosity, your sharing, your knowledge. I'm glad you did this homework so that we can benefit from what it is you do. So thank you so much for being here.
It has been my pleasure, my pleasure. I love sharing this information. So yep, let me know when I can help again.
Excellent, very good.
So to say that this was phenomenal would be the understatement of the whole day, week, month. Thank you so much. I just want to give a huge thank you to our partners. So we show here Ursula Hughes, who's the wonderful executive director of the Prosperity Foundation. We have the Waterbury Black Giving Circle, and I'm going to actually show the members, the council members, the board members of the Waterbury Black Giving Circle, and then Julie Laughlin, the executive director of the Connecticut Community Foundation. We could not have done it without them. And these are the advisory members of the Connecticut Community Foundation and the Waterbury Black Giving Circle. So thank you to them. One other thing I want to mention, at the close of our program today, there's going to be an evaluation that will appear, and I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to fill that out. We already know what it's going to say. But we pay close attention to this because we use this to build our programs in the future. And it is our goal to expand the knowledge here in our community and beyond. And so that will help us with that. So again, thank you, Asalyn. Thank you, Leon. Today was absolutely phenomenal. I learned so much and I can't wait to share.
Good. Oh, good. Thank you, everyone, for letting me be here to be a part of this.
All right. Take good care, folks.